KRCT Studios in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the Total Education Hour, the talk shop for teachers, parents, and administrators. Here's your host of the show, Neil Haley, the Total Tutor.
Hi, everyone, and welcome again. The number's 412-621-9728. The Total Education Hour. Please go to my website at totaltutor.org, and you can access podcasts, my show, read my blog, and find out what's exciting going on with the Total Education Network and the Total Education Hour. And I want to welcome my guests. I think they're already on the line. Who do I have on first? Do I have CT on?
Yeah, I'm here, Neil.
Hey, CT. Introduce yourself to the audience.
Hi, everybody. I'm a conservative teacher. I'm a teacher out in Michigan. I teach mainly high school social studies.
And then also, do I have Jim Lee on the line as well?
You do indeed, Neil.
All right, Jim Lee, introduce yourself and tell us more about you as well.
Well, I am a recovering candidate for Congress in the great state of South Carolina and the host of the Palmetto Conservative Show, a weekly talk show that runs at 10 p.m. Monday evenings on Blog Talk Radio.
All right, well, fantastic. And our first topic is one that I know that CT might be more for this than you, and he's a conservative teacher. And the first topic is the American Federation of Teachers, the nation's second largest teacher union, is calling for an end to pension spiking and double dipping, while arguing that the vast majority of public retirement benefits are modest, not excessive as critics claim. The Executive Committee of Union, which was 1.5 million members, approved the policy and released a report with recommendations today. Those policies are the product of a special committee to the union formed to study pension issues. What is your thought on that first paragraph, CT, and then I'll get Jim's thought.
Pension spiking, double dipping. In my district, a lot of teachers do that. In our state, they base your pension based on your top three salaries, whatever they were. So what most teachers do in my area is they try to have 3 years where they coach, do a lot of sports, they drive up their salaries, and then they get their pension based on that. And I think that when you teach over 40, your time span to have your salary based on what essentially is your 3 top years seems to me like it's a little bit unethical.
Okay, and I would absolutely agree. What about you, Jim?
But it's interesting, that's not unusual in the private sector where a lot of private pensions are based on, high last 3 years or whatever. In South Carolina, we have a similar program whereby what we call the Terry program that, regrettably, in South Carolina, it was intended to recruit and keep teachers because we needed them so bad, but the rest of the public sector employees insisted that if it applied to teachers, it applied to them. And so that allows them to go ahead and effectively retire, begin drawing their retirement, and return to work paying full salary while no longer putting into the pension program. So similar things in South Carolina, but I wasn't aware that AFT had made this policy proposal, but the whole notion of spiking occurs in a lot of different industries, and you could say that it's unethical. It is common practice, and I think it ought to be reeled in.
Okay, what about you, CT? And more onto that thought, what would you tell AFT? Do you think they're full of it, just trying to speak to the public because the public is angry at teachers right now?
I think that they're trying to defend themselves because for many years teachers and teachers unions have had a sweet deal, and back when times were good, that was good, and a lot of good deals were made. And some of the fault of that is for the politicians who took a short-sighted approach to things. And but now you can't afford to pay out those deals anymore. So reality striking, and the deals may have to be renegotiated. And I think the American Federation of Teachers is trying to get ahead of the ball on this one and try on their own to cut back on some of their practices, which even they recognize now might not have been the best practices out there.
Now, my thought, and again, also you can email me at edhaley@totaltutor.org. I want to hear what you think, especially our large national, I would say international listening audience and viewing audience of the show, because, again, the cameras are here today. The fact is, and I think here's the problem. You cannot guarantee anyone a guaranteed retirement with this economy. And I wanted to take this to to Jim really quick and then get CT's thought. Jim, I just don't think we can do this anymore. I don't think we could say just because you're part of a union, you're going to get this guaranteed pension when you retire, even though basically our economy's in the tank. We're dealing with all these different things. People have to pay into 401ks in the private sector. Why in the public sector are they allowed to do this?
Well, the public sector is behind the curve. In the private sector, businesses recognize the whole notion of the defined benefit programs, these pension programs, as ones that were unsustainable going forward. And they realized that, 20, 25 years ago, and began the process of starting to move towards defined contribution programs, 401ks and the like, that did really two things. It gave the employees an actual stake in the performance of the company or organization they were working for. But secondly, it gave the employee greater control over what was happening with their retirement dollars. The public sector seems to be about 25 years behind the curve here. I'd like to believe that the AFT has come to a point of realizing that, they can be part of the solution or they can continue to be a source of the problem. That's probably a little more altruistic than I would normally be.
You're dreaming, Jim. Again, the AFT, or the Communist Party, as I would like to say, absolutely positively come off it. They're just trying to get back better public opinion. And I want CT's thought on that one. But first, I wanted to bring that same question to you, CT. What is your thought as well about this? Do you agree with me that we cannot give out these big paydays to people after they retire that are guaranteed when our economy's not guaranteed, our 401ks aren't guaranteed, except you're going to have a great pension, CT, but I might not. But again, still the fact is we can't do this. We cannot allow people in the public sector to work, in the private sector to work so hard and have to work 60, 70 hours a week just to pay for someone's retirement.
You're right about a lot of things, but I don't want to let the politicians off the hook who promise these things. Deals were struck between local school districts or between state employees and teachers, and these teachers were promised their pensions as part of their job. And when you say we can't get our pensions, we were promised these things. And when you make a promise, you have to hold to it. Now, I agree with you that the reality is those promises are going to be very difficult to keep. That being said, I can't believe school districts are still giving these promises out. We should be moving immediately to away from a defined contribution retirement plan to a 401k, as we recognize. Everybody in their right mind can recognize what we're doing right now is not working. Let's immediately move away from that. We're going to have a problem in the short term because we did promise some people defined retirement contribution plans, like me. I hope I get mine someday.
I'm not trying to tear you apart, CT. And if my wife continues to teach, I don't want the diocese to just destroy her pension as well. But again, I'm talking about what we're dealing with, what the people out there are listening to, and not to attack teachers as much, CT, as we're going to attack people who make the decisions in education.
Well, yeah, I think CT hit the nail on the head, though. We can't let the politicians off the hook, because ultimately those are the ones who made the decision on our behalf that put the public, the taxpayer, on the hook for these pension programs. They're the ones that made the promises as representatives. We, the people, own some of the responsibility for that, for not holding them accountable. But at the end of the day, it's those politicians who have agreed to these programs and these contracts and continue to do so without looking at the reality before us.
And we're looking at, like, the discussion. You wouldn't believe, CT, the calls I got and how heated a debate was with this guy named Scott Evans that was on my program on the Till Education Network about this whole Wisconsin thing. It was so heated because yet we cannot allow this opportunity to basically keep negotiating contracts just so that constantly have strikes, constantly continue to try to raise salaries for teachers. We can't in this economy. I wish we were dealing with cutbacks, and Dr. Gafanti just literally tore into Jason, the public school guy, on my Sunday night show. Again, that's our problem. What can we do about it? And CT, I think what you're saying is we shouldn't take it away now, but yet the new teachers that come through say, I'm sorry, you got to pay for it.
Yeah, and I hate, it's anti-union to have a two-tiered system, but they put a two-tiered system in with the automotive companies in my area, and it's returned them back to profitability. So, I hate the fact to say that, hey, new teachers in don't get the same sweetheart deal that I got, but the fact of the matter is we might have to move to a two-tier system where new teachers coming in have a different system than those old teachers, and we're just going to have to, because promises were made, those old teachers are going to get what they deserve, and it's going to be hard for a while, but hopefully our country learned its lesson about promising and what to actually promise and then how to pay for it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, completely agree with you. Jim, one more point before we go to the next topic. It's really interesting after we have to take a break, but what ultimately, would you agree with him that CT said that the younger teachers are just going to have to pay in?
Yeah, I look at this a lot like I look at Social Security. I think the new teachers coming in, first of all, if we're candid, clear, and transparent with them up front, that they can make the decisions for themselves. Those who choose teaching as a profession, I don't believe do so because of the lucrative nature of the profession. I think most of them do it because they see it as a vocation and a calling. But that notwithstanding, if going in, they have a clear understanding of what's going to be there and what's not, and they are in control of their retirement plans, much like Social Security and the young people I talk to, they just as soon have their Social Security contributions and be in control of that themselves. Because quite frankly, if they put the money in a passbook savings account when they were 20 and continued contributing to it all of their working career, they'd be better off than they are with the program.
All right, well, we're listening to Total Education Hour, Jim Lee. We're going to be back talking about expanding boys' career options. You're listening to Total Education Hour, and we're with Jim Lee, an A conservative teacher, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Savings Man here with a story for you about two young spenders named Tommy and Sue. Their parents let them buy whatever they chose, like video games and designer clothes. As they grew older, they spent all their pay on fancy cars, houses, 2 lattes a day. They lived in the moment, never saving a dime. When they tried to retire, they'd run out of time. Working forever is Tom and Sue's fate, so choose to save now before it's too late. Visit our website to find out more, 'cause a happy ending's worth saving for.
The American Legion. We're a powerful force for the nation. We pledge ourselves to our veterans, our youth, a strong national defense, and Americanism. These 4 pillars shape our work and what we do for America. We work relentlessly within our 4 pillars of service, and we succeed. We're committed to making sure all veterans receive the benefits they deserve for the sacrifices they've made in service to America. We support and promote citizenship and integrity in America's future leaders. We know what policies, tools, and manpower our military needs to protect this great country. We fight to get these things done. We're patriots through and through. We promote and defend these values every day in communities across the nation. Go to Legion.org to find out more about the American Legion's commitment of service to America.
Back to the Total Education Hour. Again, I'm the host of the show, Neil Haley, and we're with Jim Lee and also a conservative teacher. And we had a really interesting discussion about teacher pensions. But now we're going to go a little lighter, but yet I think, Jim, this is going to be an interesting topic for you because we are really seeing boys being left behind in schools and in careers. Look at how many now males attend college compared to females. It's like shocking, the numbers. So basically people are now calling for an expanding boys' career options. And this will be interesting, and I want to hear your take, 2 conservatives' take on this. It basically says that based on this federal Civil Rights Act, barred sex discrimination in education, educators and policymakers have encouraged more girls to study and enter traditionally male careers, from science and technology to architecture and law. With male-dominated fields like construction now stagnant, however, experts argue that the situation may be reversed. American schools don't do enough to encourage boys to explore careers in traditionally female-dominated fields, such as healthcare and education. There was experts at a forum hosted Tuesday by the Washington-based Boys Initiative called for a creation of the White House Council on Boys to Men similar to the existing White House Council on Women to Girls, to organize policies and support. What is your thought? And I won't go any further because I know you guys are chomping in the bit. We'll let this time Jim go first and then CT second.
Well, I'm encouraged. The White House will have a new program, and I'm confident that will solve everything. And no, I was being sarcastic there before you smacked me down. It's interesting how much of this is attributable to the overall state of education, where I believe we've dumbed down the expectations so far, and we've allowed boys to slide off the side, and also how much of our process of education fails to recognize in the earlier years the distinction between the way males learn and females learn. From personal experience, our last of our 5 children attended a charter middle school that was single gender, and in that environment, you had boys and girls all performing at high levels in areas of college prep where those had those interests. And so there's an aspect from the education side of it to this. But on the other side, from the societal norms, I mean, how much of this is a relationship of the emasculation of our society,
Yes.
where women have been pushed into the workforce from a societal perspective because there was a disregard for the value of women who didn't enter into the career force. And now we also have fewer and fewer males. So is the answer to push males into traditionally female-dominated fields? I don't know that that's the answer.
Interesting. And I mean, I'm not going to give my opinion yet until I hear both your sides. And I think I'm going to take a point of view, but yet say, why are we forcing people to go into certain fields? Why don't they choose based on what's their passion? What do they love? Not, okay, come on, teachers, tell this male he'd be a great teacher, even though he might be a great engineer. Allow him to make the decision. Don't push him saying, oh, I'm sure that there are teachers out there. Johnny, I don't think you're going to be a great teacher. You're going to be a great construction worker. That does not happen. It's ridiculous. And to say that and to spend that kind of money. What's your take, CT?
Neil, I'm right in line with you. When I was reading the story, I wrote down in all caps, why is this the government's job to point us in a male or female direction? The government, in my opinion, should not have any role, any say in trying to push my child, whether they're male or female, into any particular career. And they shouldn't be making a particular career stereotyped as a particular sex anyway. So this whole effort to me, this White House Council on Women and Girls, to me, is it seems like it's trying to overcome traditional stereotypes, but I believe all it's going to do is reinforce those. And as you see, it's going to lead to a call for a White House Council on Boys to Men. And what is that? And what do they push? What's manly to this council? And define manly and define womanly. And it's going to get into the government going into areas that it should never be.
Do I have to sing the song? No, I'm not. Please. My producer, Christina, my television producer, says, please do not sing the Boys to Men song. And because it was back in my day. Okay, so, Jim, I'm sure you completely agree with us on this fact that, come on now, what is the government spending money on this for? Because ultimately, I think that if you said all schools were really focusing on kids' passions, doesn't matter, male, female, it's what your ability is. What you can accomplish. You can accomplish anything. This is the United States. We don't need a government type of organization to come out and say, oh, by the way, Boys to Men, let's go and try to have a roundtable discussion now how we can get more boys into education. Maybe quit having females discriminating against males in the job force in teaching. Maybe more males would want to be teachers if they weren't forced into a stereotype of nurturing. But okay. What's your thought?
Well, your latter point to this specific subject is the most important one. Why are we pushing one way or the other? The first point about what's the government involvement or role in here, in the first place, the answer is none. It should be up to the child and their parents. Their parents will know the child and have a much better view of that child's interests and aptitudes and abilities than any teacher in a classroom or any government bureaucrat would ever know. But back to the larger societal point of view, we have a problem, in my view, of beyond this particular topic of the whole notion of the fact that there are differences between the genders, and more than just biological. And we continue to try and drive some level of quote-unquote equality across those genders. Yes, there should be equal opportunity, because there are going to be females that aspire to a male-dominated field just naturally. And
Right.
there are going to be some males that aspire to a traditionally female-dominated field naturally. But those sorts of things should not be government-controlled. They should not be education-controlled.
Exactly. And CT, and I'm sure that you're going ahead and telling some of the I guess, young men in your classroom, I think you would be a great nurse.
Heck no. I mean, I'm reading the article that you sent me, and it talked about this expert who's a scholar. Thomas Mortensen is a scholar on male economic and academic achievement at the Pell Institute, and he talks about how nobody ever introduces boys into these traditionally female occupations.
He played with
and
dolls.
Someone needs to do that. And I wrote down, not the government's job. This is not the government's job, and me as a government employee, it's not my job to steer anybody, male or female, into any industry, whether I think it's a male or female industry. I should be teaching my kids social studies. I should be encouraging them to be lifelong learners, and I should be excited or passionate about education. I should not be telling them, hey, you're a big guy, why don't you go into nursing? Hey, you're a skinny girl, you should get into construction, just because I want more women in construction. It's not about that. It's about getting kids excited in education and learning things, not trying to steer them into some government-mandated career.
You absolutely are right. And I did make a comment, but I'm going to get in trouble for that, especially my larger audience. But that will create listeners. Okay, Jim, basically what we need to do is this. We need to look at education as high standards and quit focusing on this and teaching them mathematics and reading. Wouldn't you agree?
Not sure I understood the question, but I think the path you were going down, we do need to return education, particularly at the elementary and high school level, to reading, writing, and arithmetic, making sure that they have a good, solid foundation through elementary school, and then beginning in high school to exercise the critical thinking skills they'll need so that when they make that leap, if they choose to go to college, that they're prepared for the broader and more advanced education that should be afforded them in college, or if they decide that, whether they're male or female, they choose to go into a particular trade or vocation that doesn't require college, that they're prepared not only to meet those challenges, but also to be meaningful, productive citizens who can exercise the personal responsibility that I believe you fellow conservatives would agree is a key skill that we all should have, and be able to go forward and make those decisions for themselves based on whatever their particular interests and aptitudes are.
Yes, absolutely. And it's great to have two conservatives to my right and left, even though it's in cyberspace. But, you know, that's, again, the fun part about radio is we can connect people from all over the United States or the world on talking about these things. But, again, I'm very concerned because if this money spent on this is money not spent well, because ultimately we should not be, are we the communist party that we're going to decide, okay, you know, in Germany, CT, I don't know if you know this, basically they choose based on what your grades are, this is the career you're going into, and just forcing you into that, not allowing you, because you know lots of people mature later on. Never, in the United States, what makes it so great is the opportunity for people, anyone, to be successful if they choose to. And at one point, they're not focused on their academics in high school. We can't punish them down the line if they decide, oh, you're going into this field, but you come back a couple years later really focused and you become a great doctor, lawyer, engineer, business owner, teacher. We can't write people off. And it just seems like if we're going to push them into two different careers and say, this is where I think you should be because maybe you don't have the grades that this person has, we're not allowing them to make the choice. Wouldn't you agree, Jim?
Oh, I would definitely agree.
Oh, absolutely. It's just, it's too bad what's going on. And I'd love to have Thomas Mortensen call the program. And I guess I'm going to have to look at some of these guys, CT, and then we'll just have to shoot them an email and say, come on now, debate a conservative teacher. Now, Jim, I just kind of finishing up before we're going to have to say goodbye. You are involved in education in South Carolina. Can you explain a little bit what your background in education is so that our listeners understand that you have some expertise in it? I didn't really get to hear a lot of that.
Well, first and foremost, my wife and I have 5 children, the last of which we're trying to get through high school as we speak. And across those 5 children, we've experienced pretty much every possible combination of educational experience that you can have, be it public school, private school, charter schools, homeschool. And I have served as a school board member in New York State, as well as myself being a college instructor for about 8 years. So I've seen the educational process from a variety of perspectives, up close and personal. And I can tell you, as a college teacher, I saw the output of our public schools and how disappointed I was when you would receive papers and things from college freshmen that looked like they were written by a 3rd grader. And so I've seen that perspective. I've seen it from a policy perspective as a school board member and seeing the bureaucracy, which I believe is ground zero in terms of reforming education at all. You know, the teachers get, I think, far too much focus in this debate because I believe most teachers really are in it for a career
Absolutely.
and a vocation. But they get far more attention than the bureaucracy.
And I'm sorry to cut you off really quickly. Basically, I want to know more information on you, Jim, because we have to take a break in about a couple seconds.
All right. Well, I'm the host of the Palmetto Conservative Show on the CB Media Network on Blog Talk Radio, and you can listen to us from 8 to 10 p.m. every Monday night. We'd love to have folks call in. We cover a wide range of topics from politics to education to fiscal responsibility and everything in between.
Well, Jim, thanks for calling the program, and I really appreciate it, and I'm going to have you on again, okay?
Great meeting both of you. Thank you.
All right, that was Jim Lee. What a great call, and you're listening to Total Education Hour. We'll be back in just a moment.
My Jamie, your precious baby girl. When Jamie was a teenager, she would spend her lunch hours going to the tanning salons. I didn't realize how dangerous they were. If you tan when you're young, your risk for melanoma are increased by 75%. That's huge. No mother should have to visit their daughter in a cemetery.
This message is brought to you by the American Academy of Dermatology.
And now, another adventure with Savings Man.
This is great. Every day should be like this.
It will be when I retire in a few years. I've been planning and saving.
Did you save for me?
Well, this is unexpected.
Where'd you come from?
Out of the blue, just like an illness, an emergency, or
That's enough, Mr. Unexpected.
Savings Man.
There's still time to plan. Find out how at choosetosave.org with a ballpark estimate worksheet.
I will. Thanks, Savings Man.
No, thank you.
So visit choosetosave.org today.
What are you doing, dear?
My finances. Every week I divide my allowance, some to spend, some to charity. But the first thing I do is set aside 10% to save for my future.
That's awfully grown up. Did you learn that in school?
No, Dad taught me. He said if you want something tomorrow, you have to save today. Dad's saving for retirement. I'm saving for a new bike.
Choose to save. To learn how to get started, get your free Power to Choose brochure.
He's a smart man, your father.
Back to the Total Education Hour. Again, I'm the host of the show, Neil Haley, 412-621-9728. I'm with a conservative teacher. And CT, I always surprise you with things because I never can get in contact with you because you're in parts unknown. All you do is the via email thing, and I know you're busy with your studies. Maybe this summer it'll be easier to get a hold of you quickly. But my guests today, they're two very easy topics. No worries on it, CT. 2 topics we have this second half hour is homeschooling, which I'm sure you'll be interested in discussing. It's really simple, and autism. 2 very easy topics. Is this Suzanne Goes? Are you on the line?
Yes, sir. Suzanne Goes. Hi.
All right, Suzanne. Tell us more about yourself.
Well, I'm a homeschooling mother of 5 children, and before that I was a public school teacher for 3 years in the secondary, in the junior high and the high school area of teaching Spanish. And now I'm also the curriculum author of Flip Flop Spanish and I teach weekly classes of my own to homeschoolers.
Yes, and again, I met you through the Blog Talk community, which is fantastic. Okay, now CT, basically our topic for homeschooling is this. Why does homeschooling get such a bad rap? Why do they think that every child who's homeschooled does not know how to socialize, is socially awkward? So I'm going to ask Suzanne that question, and then I want you to follow up some questions, because I don't know what your take is on it, CT. You know Jason, the public school guy, thinks homeschooling is just a complete waste. But we know he's far left. Go ahead.
All right, so the question is, why is there the stereotype in the first place, right? I mean, stereotypes come from something, and they come from somewhere. So I would say that the awkward ones are the ones that you notice. There are over 2 million homeschoolers in the nation, and you don't notice the ones that are socialized. They're just normal. They blend in. And so you might look at my 5 children or any child out there, and you wouldn't even think that they're homeschooled because they're acting like every other child. And so that would be the reason I think the stereotype exists, is because you notice the awkward children, and then you would ask, well, why, what, that kid's acting a little weird, or he's shy, or he's timid, or he doesn't know how to speak properly, or whatever it is. He can't express himself confidently. And so then it turns out, oh, he's homeschooled. And so there becomes the stereotype. So that's why it's there, but sometimes the child is awkward in the public school first, and that's why they got pulled out. So they got pulled out because we're having trouble. We can't get along with other children. We're being bullied maybe. Maybe we've been labeled, and so the parents decide to pull them out and homeschool them after the fact. So I would say that homeschooling doesn't cause awkwardness, but perhaps causes an awkward child to become homeschooled.
Very, very good point. CT, what is your thought and some questions for Suzanne about this topic?
Well, with the homeschooling, I personally have a different slant on it. Being formerly in government and politics, I tend to look at things with a political angle. And I want to know, I guess, who's putting out all of this homeschoolers or awkward material. It's my own private belief that many of the public school labor unions are pushing this idea out there that homeschooling is a problem. The homeschooling, the school teacher students aren't as, are awkward, have all these problems, because I believe that this is being pushed out there so that the unions can then claim a monopoly that all the alternatives are bad, so your only possibility is to send your kids to public school run unions. And I mean, perhaps maybe it's just the paranoia of the world ending on Saturday, but I want to know who's pushing all this material out there that homeschoolers are bad.
I agree. I wonder. We get the question often. The first question I hear when I'm out with the 5 children and in the middle of the day we're running an errand or we're on a field trip or somewhere, and they see that these children are old enough they should be in school, and somebody will say, "Oh, do you homeschool?" And I said, "Yes." And of course my children, don't look or act any different than the other child. And one of the first questions is often, well, what about prom? I think, what about prom? What a question, what a concern in the education of your children. So we do get the socialization question frequently, and I don't know. I don't know where it comes from, because I don't know. That's an interesting thing. Who's putting this out there?
So what about prom? Because my wife would ask that same question.
Oh, my goodness.
Isn't that sad? But yes. Oh, did she hear that, honey? No. Okay.
Okay, what about prom? That's a big pro. That's a lot of fun. It's one night. We do have dances. We do have a homeschool prom. All the parents go if they want. The ages is age 13 and up. And we do have a big end-of-the-year prom that they decorate up, and they have an after-prom project thing, project prom type feel. So it is there for you. If that is really the most important thing in your children's educational file, then it's available to homeschoolers as well. Or, be a date to a public schooler, get in with whatever public schooler and go to their prom. I don't know. I just go really.
See, that's a great. That was a great question and quote. CT, what other question would you ask, especially if you were a doubting Thomas about homeschooling, and especially involving socialization?
Well, about socialization, I'd want to know about long-term trends. You hear so often about how homeschool kids are awkward, but I want to know if that awkwardness is anything that wears off once those homeschool kids, go ahead in the future, or if that awkwardness is I guess I just wonder, what are the long-term trends, say, on homeschool kids' social behaviors?
Yeah, we're getting to see that now. We're starting to get to see some of the adults that are coming out of, we had a big trend rise, 10 years ago or so when homeschooling really started growing in leaps and bounds rather than just the ones that had to kind of school underground because it wasn't perfectly legal everywhere. And now that it's legal and it's, actually admired and people are deciding this as an actual option for them, 10 years later, we have a lot of adults that are going to college and now becoming and graduating from college, and that is a good question. We're getting to see that now. As far as long-term trends, I don't. Anytime your experience widens, you're going to be able to define yourself. There's awkward adults, and those awkward adults often have awkward children. So, in the public schools, you're going to have the same awkwardness. Didn't we all have nerds? Didn't we all have dorks? Didn't we all have that poor, unpopular kid in the public schools? So I think the same kind of percentage would be the same either way. If you have an awkward child homeschooled versus an awkward child that's public schooled, as they get up, those are the ones that make the $1 million and are CEOs of their own company. And we wish that we invested in their stock.
See, that's a great point, Suzanne. What is the big deal? Let's just talk about cooperative learning. And I know we're forced as teachers to teach it, and it's a good thing at points, but not all the time. But that's the question. Oh, they will never learn how to work with people. When they get out to college, they won't know how to work with others. How would you dispel that myth?
Well, the assumption is that I'm at home with my children with the doors locked and the curtains drawn 24 hours a day, and I'm just sitting there staring at them, and the only person they interact with is me, and then whenever he comes home. And I think that's the assumption. When it is actually called home school, so people assume that you are home all day. But it's really more of I am in charge. I'm managing their education. And yes, 3 days out of the week I am at home, and we try very hard not to leave those 3 days because we are so busy on Monday and Wednesday running around to different classes and co-ops. So the cooperative thing we do once a week on Mondays. We join up with about 20 other families, and my children are in physics classes, in 3rd and 2nd grade, physics class and science and everything from Bible study to, of course, Spanish classes, art, and math as well. And so they're in those classes on Monday, and then we do the homework throughout the week, and then we come back on Monday again. We also have sports day twice a month, 4-H. We meet with Cub Scouts on Mondays as well. So Mondays are very busy days, being around everybody else and hanging out with everybody. So they have different authority figures. They have different teachers. And then afterwards they have coaches that come after we're done with our co-op classes that come and they get to play sports together and compete. So I think it's just because people don't know how homeschooling works. It doesn't mean that you have to be sitting at a table from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. and listening to a bell ring. It's not that I'm recreating public school in my home. I'm just managing their education in the best way I know how for each of my children.
Absolutely. CT, any other questions with the social awkwardness? I'm sure you have other questions.
I have another question, if I could.
Good.
About one thing that I quite frequently hear about homeschooling is what makes you qualified to teach children. I mean, all of us public school teachers, we have all these great degrees and we're perfect. How can you, as a parent, ever rise to the quality of education that we can deliver?
Absolutely. That's a great question. I am scared to death when we get to Algebra 1. You better believe I'm going to be looking out for other resources. So that's absolutely a great question. I am a public school teacher. I have my Texas certification. I taught public speaking in Spanish and enjoyed it. Taught English as a second language as well. Enjoyed it. So I am a born teacher, I feel like. And there are definitely homeschoolers that possibly shouldn't be homeschooling. Perhaps they aren't the best choice for their child. And just like there's people that are putting their children in public school that need to find another option. That's not the best option for them. And hopefully they'll find that way. But what makes us qualified, is the same thing that makes you qualified to be a parent. You want the best for your child, and you better believe it, that if I'm sacrificing my day after day, and my time and my income to be at home, making sure that this child gets the best education that's, completely tailored to his interest, his ability, his maturity level, his how long he can stay in the same spot versus where he needs to study. So that's the qualification there, is the love and the motivation to be sure that he gets the very best education. And so it's very hands-on. So, and I can't teach everything. I'm not going to be able to attain, Algebra 1 very easily. I can try my best, but that's something that I'll be looking for a college. I'll be looking for a classroom. Just like our co-op, I'll look for a class that we can hire.
Absolutely.
Maybe a tutor, things like that.
And absolutely. Now, Suzanne, absolutely fantastic, and you'll see how quick, again, we're running a clock compared to some of our other shows where we just could keep going on and on and on, but we have another guest. Where can we find more information on you, your website, and all that?
Okay. You can go to flipfloplearning.com, and you can also Google or look on Amazon.com for Flip Flop Spanish, the name of my curriculum. And I've also, my most recent book is called The Key to Learning Anything, and so that has a lot of practical tips for anybody that wants to learn anything from age 3 all the way to 93, The Key to Learning Anything. So thank you so much, Neil.
Suzanne, and we'll have you back on. And again, another station, I'm going to have a huge announcement to make next week on one of the Teleducation Network that we've landed. It's really exciting. Okay?
Great. Looking forward to it.
All right. That was Suzanne Goes. You're listening to Teleducation Hour, and we'll be back in just a moment.
I've lived in Delhi all my life, and I have seen the weather change. The monsoon this year has been more erratic than I can ever remember. We've had, I think, highest temperature in the last 50 years. Growing up, you'd wait for what we call an andhi, a squall. This year, there's not a drop. Some estimates say 2017, Delhi, 15 million people are going to be without water.
And now, another adventure with Savings Man.
Look, honey, it's my Social Security statement.
Oh, gosh, how are we going to retire on that?
Never fear, young savers.
It's Savings Man.
You need to save more. You'll need this.
Oh, the ballpark estimate worksheet.
That's right. Get it at choosetosave.org and find out how much you'll need to save for your future.
Gee, thanks, Savings Man.
No, thank you.
So visit choosetosave.org and stay tuned for more Savings Man.
This sector's clear, Captain.
It seems that way. But they're here.
We have an intruder.
I thought you guys were cleaning out here.
Oh, we are. We're, sweeping.
Yeah, for space aliens.
Yeah, for space aliens.
Well, good luck with that.
Imagine what a little time can do for your family.
To the Teleducation Hour. Again, I'm the host of the show, Neil Haley. We're waiting on Corinne Goodwin calling the program, and I just got an email, but maybe I just sent something. Corinne, are you on the line?
I am now. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely. And this is whenever you send me anything, it's a little tougher, especially we're going and running this clock on terrestrial radio, but I'm with my co-host, a conservative teacher, and I wanted to bring up this topic, Corinne, because again, when I was, instant message you on Gmail. I love that. It's such an awesome thing where you can get in touch with somebody in 2 seconds. I love that. And because Facebook, again, is blocked at my school. The point I wanted to make is this. I want to talk about Asperger's. That's what I want to talk about, especially what you're dealing with your family, but also some of the misconceptions and how brilliant. Remember when we had Jeff Deutsch on the program, and we had a great discussion with a roundtable discussion. So basically explain to the listeners what Asperger's is, and then we'll go into some more detail.
Okay. And I have to admit I have not heard the beginning of the show so far. So if I missed anything or I'm repeating...
Oh, it's all different topics, so it's no big deal. You're definitely...
okay, good. Yeah. Okay. So what Asperger's syndrome is... The autistic spectrum disorder is just that. It's a spectrum. Kind of an umbrella label, I guess, diagnosis that has a lot of things in it. And actually what they're finding out right now from some genetic research is that it may actually be several different disorders. But in any case, it's a disorder, and it includes a number of things, including pervasive development disorder, not otherwise specified, autism, and Asperger's. Asperger's syndrome is a little different than the others in that it's almost always high functioning, relative to, the whole Rain Man thing. These are kids who may or may not have social skills issues. They may have communication issues. They may have, anxiety or OCD. It's an umbrella, as I said, that has a whole bunch of things in it. You could do a checklist, but not every kid is going to fit every single thing on the list. Some of the kids, it's really obvious that they have trouble, and some of them, it's really not. It's more like an invisible disability until something happens and they melt down or they misconstrue something, and then all heck breaks loose. There are plenty of high-functioning and capable Aspies in our society. It's not, it's not damning. Nobody says that, if you have Asperger's, you'll never live a real life or anything. In fact, probably some of our top business and other, famous people have it. Although it's very difficult to diagnose as an adult, simply because you've learned so many behaviors to camouflage it. And as far as the learning issue, there's also a very high correlation between Asperger's and giftedness. Giftedness being a neurological construct that has to do with the density and efficiency of your brain. So it's asynchronous development. So there's a lot of overlap. Sometimes it's hard to distinguish even. But so a lot of Aspie kids, it would be a big mistake to classify all of them, in a little cookie-cutter special ed program, because many of them, despite those challenges, are extremely brilliant.
Okay, CT, now I'm sure you're interested, especially, I don't know if you have any students in high school that have Asperger's in your class or autism. So what question do you have for Corinne?
What type of challenges is there to teaching a child with Asperger as a teacher? I mean, what sort of special challenges am I going to have to deal with?
I think probably the biggest thing is to remember that it's a disability, even though it's not obvious. I think that one of the hardest parts of dealing with something like this is that if you're looking at behaviors and you assume intent, then you're going to handle it wrong. Not you personally, anyone. Most of these kids, when they do stuff, especially things that seem inappropriate or wrong or misbehaving, they usually have a reason for it, even if they aren't articulating it, and they may have trouble with expressive language or emotional language. So you have to be prepared to be compassionate and to do some detective work. For example, the kid who's sitting there staring off into space and not paying attention may not just be bored. They may be thinking something else that distracted them. There may be the hum of fluorescent lights that's driving them completely nuts. There may be something else going on, or a child who is talking incessantly. It's not just they're being rude. The idea of being quiet so everyone else can study, it's a compulsion almost for them. And even when they are trying to follow the rules, there's a lot more rules they have to remember because they don't intuitively understand things necessarily. So you have to spell things out for them, and you have to be willing to listen and help them figure out where things are going. You just can't. You have to drop your assumptions. You know what I mean?
Yes, I absolutely do, and it's a challenge. I mean, I work with children with Asperger's and autism when I tutor them, and Corinne, it's a challenge, and you really have to look at each individual child as different. Mm-hmm. Well, I think in education in general we have to do that. But
sure.
We're talking giftedness. When they get this diagnosis, and I know because of you homeschooling that you're not missing out in that fact, but when they get this diagnosis, how many children do you know with Asperger's that are not being educated well in the public school setting because of that disability, when yet they should be maybe challenged more?
Me? You asked me?
Yeah, I'm asking you that question.
Okay. Well, I can't give you numbers, but I would say, judging by the rate of change in numbers of kids who I guess almost poured out of the school system since NCLB and standards-based and curriculum and test, teaching to the test. In, 10, however many years ago, shortly after that, families started getting desperate and saying, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? And so the numbers of people who have ended up homeschooling because of giftedness, because of special ed stuff, special needs, including autistic spectrum disorder, and the people who have children who are both, because you can be gifted and have LDs, the number has just, soared. And with it has come additional resources that are available to homeschoolers, a lot more information as well, but more support. It's become more mainstream, and as it becomes more mainstream, it does that sort of back and forth, the economics of it. So,
okay.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess, and again, Corinne, and we did have Suzanne Goes. You were on a roundtable discussion with her before, I think, when you were saying that she's the one that does flip-flop learning, Spanish curriculum and stuff. But basically,
right.
Yeah, she was on. I'm kind of looking at the hottest topics, especially with the new syndication deals that the Total Education Hour is developing in the network, that I said, you know what? These topics get huge listens on some of my other stations. So I said, you know what? We got to bring it here. And we have to bring up this whole Asperger's thing. Now, CT, I know when you're hearing this, the challenge, do you have anything, what is your response to her about public schools not being able to help special needs children?
I have 34 students in my classroom. How am I supposed to manage this one student with a kid glove? And not only that, manage every other student's reaction to this student and their routines, which might seem creepy or strange or weird to the other students. That's something you might hear, and that's not from me. That's from what you might hear other teachers express.
That's a really good question, and let me just say, I'm not saying that public schools can't handle these kids. I'm saying that what's asked of them, and that's a good example, is really, it's asking a lot. I mean, we're asking our schools to do so much with so little resources. And if you've got 34 students and you've got even one, much less a handful of kids with their own little quirks and issues, you can't possibly manage it well. And it's not your fault. It's not the teacher's fault. It's not anybody's fault. It's just how it is.
Yes, I completely agree with you. And, I mean, what can we do? And CT is bringing up his, I guess, I consider Jason the public school guy, CT, your Bizarro Jerry. I really consider it. You guys absolutely are direct opposites, yet you are both passionate about education. You have the same mannerisms in many ways, and I think Christina would agree on that as well. It's funny. He's my Sunday night co-host. I bring you on in once a month to be a co-host because I think you're a good asking questions. Now,
well, as long as you called him the Bizarro one and me the normal one, I'm okay.
Okay, I definitely agree with that. Now, Corinne, I just think, what resources do you think that are out there for, because remember when I did that roundtable discussion you called in, how many of those parents that I found through Haro and Reporter Connection that were just interested to learn from Jeff Deutsch and the other adult with Aspies, they just don't know the resources out there.
There's actually quite a few, and more all the time, because what's happened a lot is that as experts have fallen back on, sort of old school behavioralism. And when I say that, I mean people who are so busy worrying about teaching social skills in a behavior setting that they're not understanding why the kids are thinking certain things or doing things. It's not about the child. It's just about fitting the child into the environment. And so what happens is a lot of parents become advocates. And so more resources pop up. But there's, we've got as the executive director of Gifted Homeschoolers Forum, we've got our own website, and we've got a page it's Resources for Twice Exceptional, which is Gifted and LD. But there's quite a few out there. In addition, there's a wonderful blog called The Thinking Person's Guide to Autism, and I think that's a great stop for any parent.
Absolutely. Where can we find more information on you, Corinne? And I understand you're about to write a book, or finish a book. A book's about to come out. Yeah, good.
Yeah, I have a book coming out in July. It's going to be the very first imprint of DHF Press, and it's called Making the Choice. when your typical child, when typical school doesn't work for your atypical child. It's a mouthful, but the idea is that it's about specifically how to decide when school is or isn't working and what to do if it's not. It's a small book, 100, 120 pages, and the idea is to have a series of perspectives in gifted homeschooling. So we'll tackle specific issues with different authors, but not, a whole other book on homeschooling, a whole other book on gifted. I don't think people need that as much. So
Okay.
that's coming out in July.
And did you give your website already? I might have missed it because
It's giftedhomeschoolers.org.
All right, fantastic, Corinne. Thanks for being a guest on the program. You provide such great information, and just expect calls because we just keep growing each and every day, and we need experts like you on our program.
Great. Thank you very much, Neil.
All right, take care, Corinne. Okay, that was Corinne Goodwin Barsley Goodwin. And then also we have CT. Where can we find more information on you really quickly before we have to close?
My blog is aconservativeteacher.blogspot.com, and I welcome everybody to come by and read my thoughts every day.
Okay, thanks for listening to the Total Education Hour. Again, I'm the host of the show, Neil Haley. TotalTutor.org for more information. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and we'll talk next Friday night at 7. Good night, everyone.
Don't know which way to turn.
USA.gov. Find your Social Security benefits online.
USA.gov.
Our list of jobs will put you on cloud nine.
USA.gov.
Shop auctions for a used minivan anytime.
USA.gov. It's government made easy for the people. USA.gov.
Meet Kathy, who's lived most everywhere, from Zanzibar to Berkeley Square.
But Patty's only seen the sights a girl can see from Brooklyn Heights. What a crazy pair.
Kath, have you heard from Patty and Richard yet?
Yes. Patty was going to stop and pick up a pie, and Richard was going to file for Medicare.
Filing for Medicare? We won't eat till midnight tomorrow.
Richard's filing for Medicare online at socialsecurity.gov. It takes less than 10 minutes.
10 minutes? But I had to go to the office and wait.
Online.
What about the paperwork?
Online.
But Richard's still working.
Online. Hey.
You made it.
No problemo, Papo. I got the pie.
And I got my Medicare.
And I've got the turkey.
Did you get that online, too?
I am Joan Rivers with an important announcement. Getting old is horrible, okay? Horrible.
You're not old. I mean, you're older, but you're not old.
You want to see old?
Oh, God.
Yes. Grow up, for goodness sakes. The last man to hit on me was an undertaker. I know where
I don't want to talk about
Well,
this,
you're going to
Mom.
have to talk about it. It's the future. It's coming right at us. And I'm not worried about dying. It's getting there. I mean, heaven is going to be fabulous. It's going to be a giant shopping mall, and there's going to be 20% off on everything, except for me, 44.
You know, you're doing jokes, and I'm just not ready.
Well, you have to be ready. You have to listen to me. Look, there are things to discuss. They're going to be my needs. They're going to be my wants.
You know, Mom, I don't want to hear this. I just don't want to hear this. La, la, la,
Don't
la.
give me la, 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 la,
I
la.
don't. I can't. I can't do
Talk
this.
to your family about aging, even if they're not ready to listen. Come on, listen to me. Listen to me.
For the first time?
Yes, for the first time.
No matter who you are, it's not easy talking about aging. For help, go to voa.org/talk. A message from Volunteers of America.
Our fugitive has been on the run for 90 minutes. Average foot speed over uneven terrain, barring any injuries, is 4 miles per hour. What I need from each and every one of you is a full target search of every gas station, residence, warehouse, farmhouse, hen house, outhouse, and doghouse in that area. Your fugitive has just cashed in his 401k plan, and all he had to do was roll it over.
Learn about rollovers and protecting your financial future, and choose to save.
You can't mess with the big dog.